Hello, hello. Our panelists are going to join as I get started, but I wanted to take this opportunity to welcome you. We are so excited that you're here. Thank you for spending your Tuesday morning with us, first day of CES. I am Stacey Kemp. I lead our CMO program, and our mission is to create a pipeline of ready and excited and fully prepared executives into the CMO and adjacent roles, then support them while they're in those roles, and then place them on as many boards as we can. And that's because we really see that creativity, marketing, customer engagement, human beings being on boards, driving enterprise growth is really the future. And so as a result of being part of that program, we often spend time with CMOs and CMO-like executives in their natural habitats, ANAs, et cetera. And increasingly, we've seen, of course, CES is becoming one of those natural habitats. And so you are part of our inaugural session here at CES, sponsored by the CMO program, engaging with CMOs and CMO-like executives around the future of technology and the work that we do. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of our inaugural moment. This session is super exciting for me on several levels. Some of my favorite people sit behind me at the moment. And we will be talking about personalization. And this is an interesting one for me because I think I've been talking to clients about personalization for probably 10 years. And yet it still continues to be a bit of a holy grail in terms of how you actually create a meaningful personalized moment. How do you do it in a cost-effective way? And I don't know, maybe AI is our panacea, but CMT is going to help us figure out what the answer is. And all of the panelists behind me clearly have those answers. And so with that, I will pass over to them straight away.
Thank you, Stacey. Well, everyone, my name is Caroline Modarressy-Tehrani. People call me CMT for obvious reasons. And I am an Emmy-nominated journalist. I'm a writer. I'm a podcaster. But for today's purposes, I am a moderator with these wonderful people on stage. And I'm going to try and be you. So I'm going to try and be a bit of a conduit for some of the questions that you have around this topic of personalization. So without further ado, I'm going to get everybody on stage to say their name, the company they work for, and one thing you want people to take away from this session. So, Emily, I'll start with you.
Yeah, great. So, Emily Ketchen. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for the IDG division of Lenovo. My one hope is that you all take away an understanding of both the relationship between data, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit, data and personalization, because they go hand in hand. So that's my hope.
That's great.
Good morning, Mark Weinstein. So good to see you all. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Hilton. Spent the last 14 and a half years there. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is why don't we focus on how much is not changing about our jobs, right? The stories we tell, the brands we create, how we do it. And then let's focus on how the capabilities are enabling us to do that very differently. And to me, that's the biggest dichotomy and also the opportunity that's sitting in front of us.
That's great.
Hello, my name is Najoh Tita-Reid. I'm the Chief Brand and Experience Officer at Mars, and I work within Petcare. The one thing I want to take you away, I just want you all to get a pet, but I also want you
and then care for them as
and
well.
Then care for them
as well. That's
exactly.
The second part that's very important.
Absolutely. But also, recognizing that personalization is truly just a better way for us to engage and making sure our products and services are relevant. So it's not about the technology, it's about the outcome that we want to manifest.
Mark, you have pet-friendly accommodations here in Vegas?
We do. We have about 70% of our hotels. There's a stat, sorry. About 80% of our hotels are pet-friendly. But the stat, 70% of people coming out of the pandemic said they'd rather travel with their pet than their spouse.
Don't worry, we're not going to poll you in the room to see which percentage you fall on.
Clearly not your spouses, but everybody else's. That's what they said.
Very good. Well, great answer. I'm Sean Downey. I am not the moderator of the panel, even though I asked the question. I'm the president of the Americas and Global Partners at Google. And one thing I guess I would like everyone to take away is learning something new that they can bring back home with them, that they can put into action.
I love that. That's great. Well, okay, I'm going to kick this off with something, Najoh, that you sort of talked about, which is this notion of kind of personalization and a deeper understanding of a customer. How do you get a deeper understanding? What are brands like yours doing today to get a deeper understanding of a customer? Is it data? Is it something else?
So I think the first thing I just to qualify is that while I am in pet care, Mars Petcare is the largest pet care company in the world, and we have both food and services. So that means both food and hospitals, so that my answer has some context. And so I'd say the personalization can absolutely improve your quality of life no matter what products and services that we have. Because we have hospitals and we have science and diagnostics, I find that one of the most impactful things that we can do is proactively diagnose the care of your pets. The one thing unique about my customers, unless you're in baby care, is pets can't talk. And so our ability to be able to diagnose them before they have an issue can improve their quality of life and care. And so we're able to diagnose, as an example, liver disease or kidney disease or different aspects of your cats and dogs, specifically 2 years in advance of what you'd really recognize otherwise, and therefore helping extend the quality and care of life. And so something like that to me is just extremely impactful, and it's because we can get the information, we can use algorithms, we can use large language models, we can diagnose that and be able to improve lives. And so to me, that's just a personalized example. And in addition to that, we can diagnose the needs of your cats and dogs and give you personalized pet care, which of course improves the quality of nutrition and care. And so those are two examples of personalization in a different way than just the marketing that I spend a lot of time doing.
Yeah, Mark, you're nodding along there. How do you sort of view the sort of holy grail, I guess, the secret sauce about how to get a deeper understanding of the consumer?
I love that answer. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into the more personalized one-on-one communications that people are thinking of a lot when they say personalization. But what I'm really intrigued by is how we're actually bringing it upstream to develop new products, right? The insights we're seeing, the problems we see at the end. So for example, we have 24 brands. We're at 8,000 hotels across the world, 1.25 million rooms each night. People are texting us stuff all day long at the front desk. And one of the trends we saw was parents were worried about getting connected rooms for their kids, right? Because if you try to book a connecting room, what happens? The hotel says, try the morning of, we'll see if we can make it happen. And so for a year, you're sweating, will this work? So we set out using AI to inventory all the rooms in the entire system and allow you at time of booking to confirm the 2 connecting rooms, right? Simple thing for parents, but hard to do with technology, without technology, so the technology enabled it. But the insight, the unlock was we're missing a product for a key customer group. That's how we launched brands. That's how we added graduate hotels for college campuses. That's how we added nomad hotels. That's how we added, some of the things we do along the journey come from, you're seeing the symptoms sometimes, and there's a tendency in marketing to want to respond to the symptom itself with a advertising campaign or a communication strategy, when actually there's product development opportunities further upstream based on that personal insight you're getting from the customer.
That's fascinating. Emily, talk about that in terms of your own learning experiences at Lenovo.
Yes, absolutely. I think so. First and foremost, as all of us know, marketers, and certainly in the roles that we're in, we are the voice of the customer, right? So for us, one of the things that we did to really get a start on this was develop 2 centers of excellence within Lenovo. The first one is an insight center of excellence, and it is fully dedicated to understanding customers, understanding the journey, understanding where they are in the journey, so that you can actually write to personalization. So that's the first piece. The second piece then also is the development and creation of a media COE, or center of excellence. So if you have the insights and you understand your products and what customers are looking for, and we've had some great examples here, how will you then talk to those customers in the context of your media strategy? And I believe it's really a cycle. The insights deliver, whatever the brief may lead you to, the campaign may lead you to, how you address a product, and think about the connecting rooms. We talked about that last month, and I think it's brilliant. But pulling that all the way through then to your media strategy, so you can actually personalize using AI and using data those messages out to your customers.
I mean, that's a behemoth task, though. So, I mean, how are you made it sound so simple as well, Emily. How have you sort of perfected that art so that everybody is sort of talking to one another, everyone is in sync?
Yeah, so first of all, the art will never be perfect, and I'm not sure that's the goal, but I think getting better and better and better. So for example, with the media COE, one of the things that we decided to do was reevaluate our relationships with agencies. And we specifically went out to find an agency who would complement that strategy. We don't want to buy all of our media. We are not specialists in television negotiation or things like that. So how do you find the right organization to help you? It becomes a flywheel. They teach us, we teach them. The other really good consequence of that is your marketers have to be way, way better at their jobs if they're planning and thinking about media and thinking about the outcomes of media. One of the things marketers are continually challenged with is, what is the return on that investment? Well, great for you to know how to get there by being part of a center of excellence that requires that you actually know the fundamentals rather than 1-800 call an agency, right? So I think that those are the ways we're really making progress in the organization for, again, our ability to be the voice of the customer.
Yeah.
I think in my example, it's usually 1-900 call agencies. Love our agency partners, but there's usually a cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Sean, kind of like digging into this a little bit, data foundation is the key and data organization as well, but how do you get a better sense of what ultimately the customer looks like? What is your sort of rubric?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Before I answer, I would say one thing that I heard the theme from everyone, and I think about a lot, because I talk most of my waking hours, I'm talking to CMOs, CEOs, and now CIOs and CTOs. And personalization at its baseline for me and all those threads is about value creation. As a company, you want to create value for yourself. And you want to make sure you want to sell all your hotel rooms at the most profitable price. You want to have the right properties. And that means you got to talk to the right people. They're going to fill those areas. For a customer, you want to give them some value for having a relationship with you that's above and beyond what anyone else can offer. And personalization touches on both those angles for both. So if you can start to really tack back and understand the value that you want to create for your customer, as well as for yourself, you start to have a much better foundation for what you need to do and why you are going to do it and where it might lead you, right? And that's really the first thing I always try and get a marketer to understand is, what are you trying to achieve here? Because personalization has been around since the early days, but it hasn't been as effective as we want it, right? So if you do that, you get to your question, you just have to start thinking about, what do I have access to that helps me understand these things? And maybe for the last 10 or so years, everyone's been on this mad scramble to create a single source of truth on database management that puts every unique piece of data into one place that they can identify and segment and target you on. And I don't think that's really the way to do it anymore, because AI has really transitioned things. It's about identifying all the segments of data that you have that tell you the stories of your customer that you can piece together, of your products and your services that you can piece together and have access to them, and then start using some generative AI to have conversational database management, where you can start to ask the questions that you might want to know about your customer or your business and have those sources pull. So a lot more of our marketers are pivoting towards having a foundation where they can access what's most important, having infrastructure to connect it. So you get a lot of, that's why all the cloud businesses are so important. And then you have the generative ability to have some conversation with that data to start to pull out those segments and looks. And that's really the main baseline, because then you can do lots of things. Then you can do creative at scale. And then
but to
you
your
can
point,
do
I think it's those
insights.
fundamentals, right? Like not losing sight of those fundamentals
Yeah.
when you have all of the sort of fancy things like the data. And Mark, you were nodding a lot there. What have been some of the main barriers to effective personalization that you've experienced? And Najoh, I want to come to you on that question too.
I think Sean has said it really well. I think marketers have been trying to get to this holy grail that is not the holy grail, to be able to predict every single thing. I think about the Starbucks out there. They don't try to predict when you get in line. Well, you're a something-year-old woman who is this tall and brown hair, and therefore you might have mocha chocolate latte. They say, what would you like? And they serve it up to you. And so I think we're overestimating the end goal a little bit. I think we're romanticizing this end state that doesn't really exist. What we should be doing is personalizing curating the right set of choices for customers of relevant contextual things to show them, to present to them, to help solve their problems, as Sean was describing. And then empowering them to make easy choices along the way. I mean, at the end of the day, the most overriding thing should be the customer's last decision. I think about our business. You travel for business, you travel for leisure. If I merged you together, what would that look like, right? I mean, on a business trip, you might want to be highest floor, you don't care about the expenses, you want a lovely view. On a family trip, you might want to be close to the elevator so grandma can get there quicker. You want free breakfast for your kids. If I take a single record, try to smush it together and sort of create an amalgamated version of you, what would that accomplish? Nothing. Instead, what we need to do is predict, it looks like you're on a business trip. Do you want to repeat what you did last time? It looks like you're here with your family. Do you want to have this set of packages this time instead? And so I just want to caution us as an industry not to get so enamored with this end state that's not actually serving a customer pain point versus using it to help guide the customer journey and be more thoughtful and putting the right things in front of the right customer.
Najoh, I want to come to you, and then Emily, I'll circle back.
I mean, there's many barriers to personalization, but I think the actual end goal for many of us is personalization at scale. So we make it sound like personalization, like each individual person, but the reality is the cost of that is often the biggest barrier. And so being able to personalize at scale and having tools to be able to deliver that, for me, is the big objection. Because at the end of the day, the people just want to make sure that they feel like it's customized for them, right place, right time, to be able to deliver that. I think that for me, one of the biggest challenges is when you have multi-dynamic households and you still want to offer personalization at scale. For those of you that have the answer on how I can get that done, come to me after because I'm still learning. But if you've got 3 pets in your house and I want to give you personalization at scale, I don't have the luxury of being Netflix, where you have like mom, dad, child, grandma on Netflix, and then you can personalize it. You've got multiple pets in the household. How do I find a way to give you customization for each of those pets if I don't have the technology to be able to do that? And so that's one of the bigger challenges that I face. And I know one of you out there has already solved it, so please let me know. And I'm looking forward to being another case study for you.
There's like 10 MarTech vendors lining up for you.
Oh, I'm ready.
Exactly.
In the back of the room.
Exactly.
They all started with the Israeli Defense Fund. They all have a commercial solution available to you, and they'll see you in the break room.
Exactly. We have great partners, and I'm sure they're working on it. But for me personally, it's something that I really want to overcome and tackle. And so hopefully next year I'll have some great case studies.
But I think it's important as well for everyone to understand that there isn't necessarily sort of like a silver bullet to all of this, and that everyone is still sort of figuring it out, because otherwise I think it can feel rather daunting and overwhelming. Emily, how do you sort of see your own kind of entree or entry point into this area and some of the barriers that you face to personalization?
Yeah. I mean, I think it very much comes back to data. And I think you're hearing all of us talk about the state of data, where it is, what it looks like, how it's segmented. Now, I am actually quite optimistic about the role of AI. And I think that, data has been, sure, it's useful, but it's only useful if you know what you're looking for, how to digest it, and how to act on it, right? Those are the key themes I think that we need to be thinking about. So I'm optimistic that AI will help us sort of be the key to unlock a lot of the data that's out there and help us to find the data that's actually very important to us. So I'm pretty optimistic about that. And I think if we can train the models to suss out where is the difference between intent and your last journey. In our case, a lot of people are in the market for, let's say, a new laptop, and that journey can start from a place of total aspiration, which is I've got a kid who's going to college and I want them to be equipped with the very best technology, and that's generally a positive journey. A more difficult journey is something isn't working correctly and I need help. And so how do you then address that with great services and the ability to meet customers where they are? So I'm quite optimistic about those signals and about AI being able to help us to read those signals and again, unlock what's in the data for us. So I actually think it's going to be a good thing for us.
Sean, how do you propose that we maybe kind of shift our mindset a little bit around AI and AI in particular when it comes to personalization?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's your approach?
Mark said something that intrigued me. A lot of things Mark says intrigues me, but he used the word prediction. Like he wants to predict what somebody does. And I think the first thing for me is always you want to change mindsets about how things work. Because for 20 years, we've trained this industry to operate on what's happened last. And that will then infuse what you do next, right? And that's not personalization. That's remarketing something you've already done that I have faith in that you may or may not be interested in, right? Whereas prediction allows me to start thinking about what might you do next based on a variety of profiles. So the first thing I always want our partners to do is think about move from a world of reaction into a world of prediction. And then start to build your strategy that way. And that's kind of where AI starts to help you, because I want you to start predicting audience types. Like I'm interested in journeys. You talked about the journey of buying a laptop and behaviors, right? Much more than I am clicks and actions. Like what have you looked at? And how does that match up other people that have bought the same product? What's your your intent look like based on the content you consumed or the searches that you've done? Because you start to get a better picture of what somebody's in market for, because we're all consumers of many products, hundreds of products, and we're in the market for something at a particular time every time we're in a journey. And then you can start to harness your own website better, your own assets around what's their journey look like on your own sites that can feed that area. So understand profiles so that you can predict what somebody might be in the market for. And AI helps you do that because you can start to put all this metadata into a database and you can start to query that and say, what does this tell me about this type of person and what can I put in front of them that answers the question, right? That's like a really important frame that I want people to walk away with. And then I can do a lot of different things, right? And then I have to start tackling this construct of creative. Because personalization isn't necessarily buying one-to-one media, it's buying media where consumers are, because they spend their time doing 4 things. They stream, they scroll, they shop, and they search. Right? Those are 4 consumer behaviors. So are you purchasing media on those types of platforms or areas? And then start to identify them, their behaviors, and then what do I need to tell them? That's a creative message. Right? What is the most resonant thing that I can tell them? Am I trying to create some awareness about my brand because I don't have a good read on what that consumer might be? Or do I believe they're in a purchase cycle with me and I want to create some offer management? Is there a certain creative content that looks nicer for the business traveler versus the leisure traveler? Like, start to take those signals and build a more scalable creative personalization modality. Because I think you'll find personalization is a lot more in the message against the intent versus just the person.
Wait,
right?
Mark, you're nodding along there.
Yeah.
You talk to me a little bit about that when it comes to Hilton, and then Najoh, I want to come to you.
Well, I think with the exception of Google on the stage, none of our brands are going to invent the next general purpose AI that's going to change the world. Google will.
Najoh, yeah.
If it speaks woof woof and meow meow, maybe. But I mean, I have no illusions. We do a lot of PowerPoint. I don't try to create a better PowerPoint. We just use PowerPoint, right? So
Google Slides, Mark.
Or Google Slides. Sorry. On brand, equal opportunity. But I think the distraction for us is, you saw this flurry of brands trying to create the next AI whatever, and actually most of us won't create that thing. We'll use the tools really effectively to tell our stories. And so my biggest focus at the moment is very similar to what Sean was describing. What is the corpus of creative I need to be putting into the world, right? How do I make sure that as tech companies create the next interaction model, whether it's voice-driven or AI-driven or whatever the next modality is, that it's not just thinking the best hotel room is the cheapest product or the closest to me, right? That's commoditizing a brand. We've got to create the body of knowledge that says there are other dimensions and variables in this customer journey and the value equation that all of us are here trying to command premiums for our brands. And so I just think the distraction is, I'm glad to see the evolution. Last year we were debating, is AI a good idea or a bad idea? And that's kind of a waste of time. That's happened. The next waste of time is debating what thing we're going to create next or what tool is going to win. That's not important right this second. What's important is this wave is coming. The capabilities are coming in all the ways you're describing, all my colleagues here are describing. We need to be ready for it by telling our stories in relevant ways that put the right information in front of the right customer. And I think Sean also said it well. I think the dynamic has flipped where you can target pretty well. Targeting is not personalization, though. If you don't have the right creative to put in front of them, if you don't have anything different to say to them, the fact that we've figured out exactly who you are and what you're trying to accomplish and then put the same generic creative in front of you, what does that accomplish?
I think that's really good. Emily, can you just pull on that thread for a second? Because I know that you had a sort of journey with Formula One, F1.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit
I sure
about
can.
that with the storytelling piece that Mark was just alluding to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's helpful to have an example, right, sort of how we actually approached it. And I think one of the things that we're talking about is not just personalization, to your point, but also contextualization. How do you provide that right piece of creative in the right moment? So we are a global sponsor of the F1. And as you can imagine, a very important target audience to me is a CIO, somebody in the C-suite who's making IT decisions. And so we work with a company called SeedTag to help contextualize, with the use of AI, the ability to target a CIO who is interested in or has spent time looking at or participating in the F1. And so the ability to draw those two data sets together gave me the opportunity, sort of your nirvana, which is to share the exact right piece of creative at the exact right time to that target audience. And we saw an uplift of 55% in our efficiency in our media. So it's just a great example of something that we did very much as a test. I think you have to test and learn your way into a lot of these technologies, and you have to also respect privacy as part of that process. And so doing it the right way was very important, but super effective. And that use of AI, contextualization, the right message to the right person at the right time, proved to be very, very successful for us.
And just on that point then, Najoh, I want to come to you, but like, what were some of the lessons you learned along the way as you were sort of, deciding the correct path? Like, what were some of the big takeaways for you that you thought, okay, we can apply this next time at scale?
Yeah, so the biggest takeaway is you should try to identify those audience members that come together. It's what Sean was talking about in the context of understanding pools of audiences who might be behaving in the right way. You can't get to all of them with a unique message all the time. So how do you bring them together and scale those messages in a contextual way that's relevant? I'll come back to the voice of the customer. My job is to remove friction from the process. My job is to actually be helpful to you when you're looking for something or when you want to make a decision. So I think that's a very important frame. Yes, brand out, sales are very important. I see myself as the chief growth officer, not just as the chief marketing officer. So that's very important, but I don't want to make it more friction or more difficult. It's meant to be useful. So I think that's a big part of what we learned along the way. And be open to making mistakes and talking about it and getting better at the journey.
And that bit sort of piece, Najoh, about not being risk averse, right? Like Emily talking about being open to make mistakes. This is new for all of us.
Absolutely.
So how do you approach that when you're innovating and you're thinking about personalization?
So we're going to make mistakes, so I need to say we just have to accept that and really celebrate our teams for failing fast, because to not make mistakes would mean to not learn in this area at all. I'd say a couple of things, and I'm very conscious that we're at CES, and many of you guys are geniuses in what you do. And I think the most important thing is to interact, at least with most of us, we're not you from a Google standpoint, but on our business problems, and then use technology to solve our problems, because and work with our partners. I don't want to make any mistake about it. I am not sitting here because I do all the work. Without my advertising partners, without my media partners, none of the examples that I'm sharing would be possible without our amazing marketers around the world. So I am just a representative of all those people. But we have leveraged technology to solve business problems. When we do that, great, it's possible. So if there's anything that you can do for us is understand my business problems and help me make the connection between the great technology that's in this room and expertise to solve the issues. One example that I want to give is we have an amazing campaign that won a Grand Prix and all the great things that marketers really enjoy, but it wasn't about the fact that we won a really creative excellence award. It was the fact that we have a problem with adoption of pets, okay? We have an amazing brand called Pedigree, and for 10 years, their brand promise has been around good food and doing good in the world and really reducing the challenge of pet homelessness. So that's the brand, all right? So, but how do we leverage technology? We really believed, with a great partner, OMC, that we could use technology to improve adoption. And so this is a situation where we did have an AI proprietary technology, not because I was trying to develop an AI proprietary technology, it's just because it wasn't developed. But if someone can develop it better, so be it. I'm not going to be selling this technology, where you could kind of walk throughout a city and you could see an ad of Pedigree. And on that ad, the dog that you are seeing was actually a dog in a shelter in the same zip code that you're in, okay? We used AI to pretty much glam up the pets. So these pets were looking fabulous. And that technology had not been developed, so it had to be developed. Like, how do you pimp up, a pet? And don't get that on tape. Let me just, how do you make a pet look beautiful and see their best side was really important. And AI helped us get that done. It helped us also pinpoint how do you get the shelter in the zip code that you are. As a result of AI and technology and customization, all of that, we were able to have the dogs that you could see, 50% of them were adopted within 2 weeks. That is an incredible outcome. And that was because technology enables you to do that. As soon as that dog was adopted, right on the ad, digital display, became a new pet. That wasn't possible a year ago. And so with great partners, that was there. And I'm sure the technology could have existed, but I didn't know about it. And so I think the more that you can understand our problems and help us make the connection, the better that we can make the impact that we want to have on the world for our brand. So that's an example. And we did fail along the way. I mean, there was a lot of learning to get there. but we made it.
Well, and I think one of the things that you sort of talked about there, Najoh, is the idea of like delighting people, right? Like that really is something that, I mean, who doesn't want to see a pet adopted, right? Like that needs one, you want to take them out of a shelter, absolutely. Like, you know, back to that sort of idea of the mindset shift, Sean, how do you propose that people in the audience think about using AI for personalization that does delight, that doesn't kind of give that ick and it doesn't feel sort of gross? And I know that you sometimes talk about it as like a jetpack. Can you just elaborate a little?
I have used that term. I like to say AI is a jetpack for your business or for the problem that you're trying to solve, because it's going to allow you to do things you didn't think were possible. The way you were describing was really important. And it should be doing things that are delightful for people, because you're surprising them because you're giving them something they want to see versus something that they haven't seen. What's icky, to use your language, is when I bought a pair of shoes and then 10 minutes later the pair of shoes shows up in the next ad, right? Because then it feels like you're being tracked and followed. And you know, I've been through all the programmatic businesses. I help build them. I know how that stuff works. And that's what consumers think about when they think about over-targeting or over-personalization. What's delightful is when you get the offer for the vacation that you're thinking about planning at the right time. Because then you understand me as a consumer, that I am interested in your brand. I hold high affinity for it. I'm probably a good customer, which is why you know a lot about me. You understand that I am traveling somewhere and have certain preferences, and you've delivered that to me, and you've given me some value deal to go do it, right? That's a delightful experience. So you have to start thinking about painting the picture of what a consumer looks like. And that means to me, like, start thinking that not all consumers are the same, and not all activations are the same. Because you'll find you can do almost anything you want with technology. You said it. And the pace of innovation is faster than any innovative course we've ever seen. So what was here this week will be different in 2 weeks, in 6 months. And so it's just about ideating about what's possible to do. But that pace is always good. But start thinking about how you leverage the ability to understand segments better and go after it that way. Because the technology is always going to enable you to do it. And the example I gave you when we chatted on the phone, which I think is really interesting, is we're not all created equal, because we have different types of customers that make different incomes, have different preferences, and are different for your business. And the one I love to talk about is there's an airline. I won't name the airline.
You can name the airline. You can name. It's okay. We're just friends here.
They have different routes. All airlines have different routes. And some routes are highly profitable. Some routes are not that profitable. Some routes are break even. And of course, every CEO of an airline industry wants every route to be highly profitable. But if you market just frequent travelers for your business, you're going to get the same customer at the same cost structure, and you're not going to have even distribution of what profit might look like on the routes that you're most interested in, right? So that's a business problem. How do I take a really important route that's losing money and turn that around? And how should I think about using technology to do it? And that's getting to your problem. And the way to do it is you understand all the behaviors, who travels that kind of route, how often, what are they doing, what's the price point that they're paying, and then you start to build a different profile through technology around what it might be, what might that person look like, and then what that person might be worth to you. Because there's one aspect of identifying that's a very specific traveler that's going to go on this route that looks a lot different than the vacationer going to Disney World. So one, be able to predict the behaviors of those people, because you want the one you know and then the 10 others that look like them. And then understand they're probably worth something different to you. So have some differentiation in what you're willing to pay for that lead or for that acquisition. And this is a really big mindset shift, because most of our advertisers go in with a ROAS that's consistent across the board, no matter the product, no matter the customer. And I'm always trying to get people to think differently and say, what's the return ad spend for that segment or product that you wish to have access to? And what this airline did is they identified the type of person, even though they didn't know them. Synthetic audiences are just as good as personalized audiences because they're behavior-based, that they were worth probably 10x more than a general traveler because it's a highly expensive route. And they were willing to bid more on our platform to acquire them, different than what they were bidding for other routes. Then they found people miraculously, that met the profile, that they paid more for, that then bought the ticket and did the flights, and then it became a multi-$100-million profitable route after losing money for 3 years.
Wow.
Right?
And I mean, that's to that point about mindset shift and like, you know, where it's growth over gimmick, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that so much of this sort of, you know, technology at our fingertips can sometimes feel like it veers into gimmick. Emily, when you're thinking about who you have on your team to help you achieve some of this, it's not just one team, right? Like, how are you thinking about it at Lenovo?
It's, you know, from our perspective, it is a group that comes together. One of the things that we did early on is we developed an internal committee council, if you will, on AI. And the responsible use of AI in the marketing organization, we brought in our security team, we brought in the comms team, we brought in our legal team, and we formed an organization that is fully based on understanding AI, the appropriate use of AI, if you will. And then what we did is we went out and surveyed our marketing organization to understand what is it that they wanted to learn more about in the context of AI. We took it a step further and went out and bought licenses. We hired a phenomenal trainer, and we are on course number 7 of 11 courses that we're taking our marketers through. So the point being, you want to democratize the information around AI, responsible ways to market within AI, teaching your marketers how to do it the right way. Get in there, have the license, experiment. We're moving on to things like prompt engineering and curation and ultimately a library, right? Because if somebody else has figured out the prompt, why do I need to go figure out the prompt? And we're not maybe in the single source area of personalization, but experiences here will lead to this. And so I think it's super important for every organization, actually, to have a point of view on responsible AI, how you think about that, having an organizing body inside your organization. It sounds super formal. We came together as a group and just set it up, right? It's not that hard to do. And we have great partners and we have incredible trainers. And the most amazing piece of all of this is, out of this kind of formal process came like a group of evangelists. And there are now 100 of them, and they meet separately, they have their own thing, they come back, they prompt engineer, they have all kinds of ideas, and it's come full circle to where they're now teaching the rest of the marketing organization because they love it. I mean, here it is, right? Let's talk about it. 30 years ago, the internet? I don't know. Phones that are smart, like our Motorola devices? I don't know. It's here. AI is here. You need to lean in and you need to understand what it is, what it brings. We talked about this, right? You may not be inventing, or you may be, in your case, right? But I think we all have a real responsibility to understand it, and that's how I would think about answering that.
Well,
It's us.
I think that's a wonderful way to sort of start to close out our session and our time together, which is, I'd love it if each of you could just talk and give one thing that you want everyone in the room to take away as they're sort of developing their own approaches to personalization. You know, Mark, when you're thinking about reaching the right person at the right moment, what would you advise people to sort of do? I mean, when you open your piece of paper, you open your notebook, and you're starting to write things down, what's your approach?
Yeah, to finish that sentence, to do what? And I think that's what, you know, I grew up in data science, I grew up in loyalty, I grew up in CRM, I mean, I was able to help grow a Hilton Honors to over 200 million people. So I am a data-driven person, and I'm spending more of my time today thinking about creative and how we're going to disrupt and how we're going to find passion point communities of creators and, you know, affinity points because people like me buy, do, and think and feel this way. I'm spending more of my time on that because the technology is going to sort itself out, and we're going exactly the journey you're describing. That's going to work itself out. What's not going to work itself out unless we put the calories behind it is, what are we trying to say? What does the world uniquely need from us? What does our brand stand for? How do we show up in the world? How do you know it's us, and how do we command a premium? And I think the rest of these questions, we can work them out, but not spending the time on the creative and the narrative of who we are and what we want to say in the world. That to me is going to stop all these things in their tracks, because the capability will be there, but not the strategy, not the intent, not the comm strategy, and what we do so well as marketers, tell stories.
I think that's great. Najoh?
You know, I would say, at least from a marketer, you know, don't necessarily focus on being a master of technology. We have enough brilliant people here who are going to do that. Focus on being masterful at how to put your in my case, pet parents, but your consumer at the center. Be masterful at being user-centric in your approach and understanding your consumer journey, which is no longer linear. And then work with amazing partners to figure out how you can meet your customer when and where your messages can be most relevant at the right time, to personalize, to customize, to reduce friction. But that's what we do best, is understand our consumer, understand the journey, understand where, when, and how people want to receive our messages. And technology is just a tool that we use to deliver that more effectively, more efficiently. So that's what I give a marketer as advice.
Emily and then Sean.
I'll go back to where I started. Be the voice of the customer, and then I'll pick up some of the threads around lean into the technology, understand the customer journey, and make sure that you are driving growth for your brand, whatever that may look like. You had lots of different examples up here this morning, so keep your eye on that ball and make sure that you're driving that forward as marketers.
And Sean, in terms of the partnerships, obviously you kind of are that role here today. How would you advise people to sort of think about their partnerships?
Yeah, well, if you're a CMO or an aspiring CMO, I want you to change your title to Change Management Officer.
Absolutely.
Not Chief Marketing Officer, because you have to start to drive the change around what's possible for how you talk to your customer and you present your brands. So start with that mindset shift. And then what I would suggest is you embrace the counter. Like, most people look at AI and they think we're going to be a highly technical world that's run by machines. I say machines make your life easier. Technology is going to help you do things you couldn't do before. And you as a marketer can bring humanity back to marketing. All three of you said something about understanding your customer, understanding the stories that resonate. So be great at that. Bring humanity of your brand to your customer. Speak to your value. And then set up your marketing world over the next 18 months to 24 months that is going to embrace that journey to be the most customer-centric, human-centric, marketing-centric business that you have. And then teach your people how to use technology to make that be the jetpack that powers your business.
Well, thank you all very much for being with us this morning, and thank you to Sean, Najoh, Mark, and Emily. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.